Hey guys, my name is Edward, and today we're going to be starting a rebuild of the Los Angeles Angels in Alder Park Baseball 2027. So, the main goal is to win a championship by 2030, as that's when Mike Trout's contract expires. However, we mainly want to rebuild our farm system in the first year of this sim, and that'll probably be the first 2-3 episodes will be on, just this first year, and the draft, and rebuilding the team through the draft mainly, and the trade deadline, possibly by trading pieces like maybe Reed Detmers and Jose Soriano. Our two untouchables throughout this sim for now will be Mike Trout and Zach Neto. However, as the sim goes on, of course, and we get better players, they'll prefer to be more untouchables. But we mainly want to rebuild this team around Zach Neto and Mike Trout. Mike Trout does have huge amounts of power. However, he is very fragile, and the avoid Ks are hit and miss usually in out of the park baseball, especially the more recent versions. I've come to notice. Sometimes they'll just perform tremendously and put up like 6 WAR seasons. Other times they'll be putting up seasons at 1 WAR and striking 210, 220 times per season. It gets very iffy once you get that to 35 range, and that's like the little gray area. But obviously, Mike Trout does make a huge amount of money. However, this is a big market team, the Los Angeles Angels, and we do have come next year $100 million to play with. So once you get to that offseason, we can start making big moves. But for now, we're gonna try and cut some payroll before the draft and be able to sign big money targets with our extra money, and also maybe trade in and start building our team in the trade deadline. I'll put the settings down in the description. But the main things we will be playing with are one, having personalities enabled to be able to see, as we just saw under Mike Trout, and two, and most importantly, is the Dev Lab will be boosted. I know a lot of people don't play the boosted. Dev Lab is very busted. However, we are playing a more of a casual approach, not like a really basically we're playing a lot more easy casual approach to the game. We're not gonna take it too seriously. Um, there will be no commissioner mode, and in cheats of that. But if players do get released and we notice it throughout the game, we will use it to put players back on our teams. Um, and then, but back to the Dev Lab. The Dev Lab will be increased to 16 slots and have a larger magnitude and easier setting, for the trainings. But we will limit ourselves to a certain amount of types of training each off season. We won't go all in on bat speed and all in on movement, which are the two most busted and easiest probably trainings to really get good boost on ratings on. We will be forcing ourselves to use other ones just to basically balance it out a little bit. And we may reduce our DevLab usage to about 12, as I've seen other YouTubers such as OOTP Patty do. Um, but when we get to the off season, we'll decide, and I'll let you know by that time. I haven't hired any coaches yet, which is why, as I said, we might trade Ray Talent, because when we fire a bunch of coaches and set up the minor leagues, um, coaching staff, we'll always take a huge chunk of money out of that. Therefore, we want as much money available for the draft. I also haven't set, as you saw earlier, the dev budget. The dev budget's going to ideally hover around at least 30 million per, and I usually keep the scouting ready at half, um, and put at 15 million in this case. But sometimes I will drop it a little bit below that. And for the scouting, I would suggest that now, because this is what I ideally see as the best one, is to go with a 15-15 split for major and minor leagues. However, you could drop the major leagues to 10%, and I ideally usually go up for a 40% 35 split in the amateur and international. Usually because your scout gets minor league international fines more frequently based on your international scouting budget. Um, But other than that, I'm going to set the coaches and start the sim, and I'll get back to you probably in about a month or so and see how the team's doing, and we'll go from there. Alright, we're back after a month of a sim. So, as you can see, we are 16-16 right now, which is a lot better than I originally thought. However, our Pythagorean record is 14-18, so clearly we are outperforming ourselves right now. I mean, you can see, like, we're bottom in the bottom half in every stat, basically, in the AL, except for BABIP and opponent average, which still shows like that this team is getting absurdly lucky right now. I mean, to start off, Mike Trout has gone hurt, typical of Mike Trout. Um, Ben Joyce did come off the IL for just a second, as in he was rehabbing, and then he tore his rotator cuff, which is typical of him as well. We did take Vaughn Grisham off the IL just a couple days ago. We had him serve this whole thing just because, just to get him reps in the minor leagues. I mean, he is a 44, and as you can see, he probably will be getting an assignment back to AAA soon. The roster itself, I mean, players like I've called Kyron Paris back up to replace Mike Trout because he can play a really good center field, all things considering. Um, the bat hasn't been really there at all, but like the defense has been showing completely with the 2.6 projected board he has right now. Um, but Jo Adell is our best batter, mainly just because of the power. But he is striking out. He does it 30 Ks already, which is crazy compared to how like players like Kyron Paris is 31 through 23 games. Um, but if we look at our pitching side, Jose Soriano has been and should be our best starter. All things can like 1.8 ERA. I'm probably going to shop him around the deadline to see what he offers. Um, but I don't think he'll fetch a fair price considering the AI has been a lot more strict on trades this year. It's not as busted trades. Even if you turn the settings down to like the easiest setting you possibly can, they're still not as busted as they were in 2026 or the 20 like OOTP 26. Sorry. Um, but Jordan Romero has shockingly been better. Like, I mean, obviously, he's way better than he has been in real life, considering he's still in the major league roster. But that 0 ERA he has is really affected by that BABIP, which again is super low, showing that this team is getting absurdly lucky right now. And why guys like Kyron Paris are so highly rated. But to go on, I did clean house with the coaching staff. And our budget did drop to negative for a second. I had to adjust the development budget to 27 million instead of 15 million. For this year alone as well, I did make the scouting budgets a little different than I usually do. Since I know that I am going to sell most likely, I turned up minor league scouting to 20% while turning down international scouting just for this year alone. Those will get adjusted to the 15-15 and 35 most likely at the end of the year. Once the scouting's all set up and back to normal, we did hire Drew Toussaint, and as our scouting director, and we did hire the Rick Jameson, who is the best trainer you can get every time at the start of a save. These two are your usual go-to guys if you just want someone reliable and consistent. Toussaint especially because he's young, and you have him in your organization for usually at least, if you're going long term, like you have him at least for over like 10, 15 years, and he might get pushed as a general manager later on down in the save, but sometimes he just doesn't for some reason. Coach poaching has been way less common in this year's version, especially I've come to notice. Um, yeah, as we said, Mike Trout's been hurt. Uh, I do try to maybe trade Josh Lyles as well. And, I mean, we were going to try and trade Reed Detmers, but he has been really performing at all. Zach Neto has been underperforming. But I'm not too worried about him. The power will come through, and the BABIP is real high. If the eye does develop too, it would help a lot too with that strikeout rate, especially. But I'm not too worried about him. I will devlab him for the shortstop, because usually you do want a really good defensive shortstop, like over the 60 rating is preferred. Um, as like in like they're like a high shortstop rating for defense can just outweigh a bad bat in bad years too. I've come to those too, especially. But to move on though, I'm going to probably sim another month through in June and then start to look and consider who we are actually going to trade. But one more quick thing, I do want to go over my minor league plan too. Um, I am leaving Christian Moore, our best hitting prospect right now, in AAA just for a little bit to one, manipulate his service time a bit, and two, just to give him confidence build up so that way he can come up and not have a low morale and hurt his development completely. Because, um, yeah. And Nelson Rada, who is like the highest rated, has been pretty good too. I'm probably gonna call him up too. I was considering making him the Mike Trout replacement, but I felt like just um I want to see the just see how the bat work played down there because of how low his ratings are. I mean, a 50 BABIP is league average about, but like the gap power is in there, so he would really be laying out singles. And I wanted to make sure that he could at least like play. But as you can see, he is performing way above league average in AAA. So you probably will want to call up. By I will probably have him, and I will probably have Rada and more up by the end of this month, especially just so I can like at least start to see if they actually can play and will develop. Um, Gray Rod's also gonna be back from IL too, so we'll see how that affects the pitching staff. Hope that gives them a boost. But yeah, I'll gonna sim for another month, and I'll get back to you. All right, we're back. A little later than I originally said. We went halfway through June this time. But Artie did make us, for once, which is actually crazy for me to say, that Artie has listed the team as rebuilding, which was a shocker for me. But that does mean our payroll has been slashed for our next year down to 242, which was projected to be around 260. But it is what it is. We weren't really planning on contending next year, so the game did actually see that. Um, but to cover, let's first go on who was injured. So Josh Lau just went on the injured list not too long ago. Yusei went on the injured list. Um, and we're probably not going to deal him unless he gets some sort of recovery on the trade deadline. But we probably were going to use him next year anyways, just to eat innings regardless. So that payroll that does come at a hefty price though, of 21 million. But we are a big market, so we can stomach that for just a year. Um, but we do have Joe Adell, who did go on the IL as well, and Jose Siri, who won the IL just two. Um, Mike Trout did come back, but he's been all right. I mean, he was starting at a little negative WAR at the beginning of the season. He was at negative 0.5 when he came back, so he did turn around. Zach No did come back, as I said, I believed he would. back to that 2.1, about 4 WAR, over 4 WAR projection, which would be a career year for him. But Kyron Paris did fall off a bit as I did originally think. I think that was sustainable. The main two moves we did make were bringing up Nelson Rada and Christian Moore. They were replacements for Rada was a replacement for Joe Odell, and I did bring what's his name up, Moore for Lau. Pitching, Soriano did just get real hard in a game against Colorado. You can see right here, 5 earned runs. He only made 4 in the first, but he still has been about as good as you can hope for. Really, Reed Detmers, disappointing year. I don't think we're gonna get anything to trade him. Same with Grayrod, especially. Ryan Johnson has been improving too. The main storyline is Jordan Romano. He's still been as good. He did finally give up a run, but like his BABIP's at 219. His XERA does support him too, and his FIP, which is shocking to me considering. I mean, look at his ratings. But I can see if I can try and get something from him on the deadline. I don't think he will just because of the ratings. I did bring Yates also off the IL, and I signed Max Kranick to a minor league deal just to add some bullpen help and just to just to throw stuff at the wall basically and see if I can improve. I did DFA Vaughn Grisham as well, and he did slip through waivers as I thought he would. I also did set my short list too right as soon as I start my recording, and Kane Donna has actually improved tremendously. He was originally projected to be 1.9 WAR. The xERA was supporting him though, so I believe in many ways. He's probably gonna warrant a call up if I can get that. Like, especially that moon rain comes up soon. He'll warrant a call up. So looking forward, we are gonna sell obviously as I have discussed. Um, but the main two pieces that I'm most likely gonna sell, high on will probably be Jose Soriano. Though I might offer him or Zach Nono extension, see they take a cheap extension. And just set us up, our payroll up for the future. Considering like most of his roster is just gonna be turned over next year, completely. To also add on, I did just claim Tyler Phillips off waivers from Miami. He was putting up decent numbers. I mean, the XRA doesn't really support him, but again, I just want to throw stuff at the wall and just see if I can get anything out of players and maybe trade on them or add them into a package. Drew Pomeranz will probably be one of the main pieces we'll include in packaging with someone else on this team. He's been pitching pretty good too. And Yohan Moncada might be. I mean, he's had a very disappointing season as well. I think I wanted to sell high on him too as a 1 year rental. But I don't think we'll get anything out of him really. Though, if he does start to improve, we might bring back another year just to fill a spot. Considering we have no one really to throw up there really. Our minor league, as I said, is just gutted completely. Looking at the draft though, right now, from the pool we have, we are drafting 12th, sadly. And I mean, if someone like Drew Burress does fall, from what I've seen, a couple sims, Drew Burress does pan out early. We can use him as trade bait if you want to. Though the main target I do want to take a bat. You know, you're not supposed to draft for need. Like, we do need to take bats in this draft, really. But this draft usually isn't like the one you start with. Usually, is not impressive. If someone like Gomez does drop, I'll take him instantly. He usually, if you devil have him on power, like you, he'll turn to like at least a solid MLB bat, at least to where you can get to him at least. You know he's a 71 projected over. I mean potential. He usually doesn't hit that. It's usually around 50. But it's someone like Jacob Lombard though, or Greg Emerson, God forbid, drops, or even a Brock Chalowski, I'm taking him instantly. Um, and if someone like who I do really want to see if I can hope will fall is, where is he? It's, I can't find him like real quick, but it's Tegan Coons, who usually is a late first round pick, sometimes falls even later to the second round. If Coons does fall though, I don't think Toussaint's too high on him right now. But if Coons does drop, um, I'm obviously gonna take him because he usually turns out, there he is. He turns out real good usually. In a lot of states I find. Um, Obviously Toussaint doesn't really support him right now, but usually, more often than not, he does pan out. So he's a possible target that I will um go and find. Um, so yeah, that about wraps up this part. I'll get back to you for the draft, and then I'll end it from there. All right, we're back. So we are on draft day. We're not gonna start the draft in this episode. We'll do it in the next episode, and probably make the main focus of the episode on the draft and possibly on the trade deadline too. But we'll see when we get to that. Um, I did start to make some trades. Um, so the main two trades were for Romano, and we did trade one of our minor league talents away, or not really talent, just deals in Nick Magical. Um, so let's just pull up. I'll show you the trades here for the transaction log. Um, Actually, let me pull up the major transaction log. Just so I don't avoid all these like my what's called my GM doing the automatic demotions I have instead of the shortlisted guys. Um, so we did DFA Adam Frazier um twice actually just to make room for spots in the roster. Um, One because Josh Lau did come up and Adam Frazier would refuse it. This is the second one though. The first one we did though was back in um was before July one. Sorry. Um was right here was on the 27th when 27th was a, let's go back to the 21st, I guess. That was when the Dodgers offered me this trade actually. Romano for mainly James Tibbs the third, um, with high adaptability and high work ethic. He's 23. He'll be 24 by next year when we develop him. So he'll hopefully have him back up in the majors. Um, Come at least September at the very latest. Um, and I'm probably gonna dev him on probably power, but I might do his quality of contact too, or his eye, possibly. We'll see based on his stats what needs improvement most. It's probably not going to be the eye though. That'll probably be third. If I'm just not too confident on it, or if I'm gonna limit myself on bat speed too. Um, but Tibbs was the main piece of the deal. He was doing pretty good in Oklahoma City. Um, when we trade for him, he's been doing even better here actually, for 324 batting average, and his OPS plus and weight runs created plus are way higher too. Also, the percentile rankings really likes him too, as well. Um, we did trade Jorge Soler just as a salary dump really, and just to keep my bullpen a little bit strong because we were throwing out Tyler Phillips as our setup guy, as our seventh inning setup guy. So we just decided to strengthen our bullpen just for the year and at least have it like somewhat reasonable. And maybe we could try and flip Frazier too. But we may just try to dump Soler just so we can free up like $5 million for payroll for the draft coming up. We did also option Grayrod um, on the same day too. To free up a spot for Brazier. Um, because I mean, look how he's been doing, 5.91 ERA. For and 8.42 even worse down here. But I mean, the expected ERA though is better, so I'm not too worried about that. However, the FIP is very way higher though. So, um, Grayarm, I mean, I might try and flip him, but I doubt I'll get anything for him. I got an offer from the Orioles for a couple of 40 potential players at 24 years old. Um, so obviously we're gonna take that. We did claim also we claimed Tolly Nance off waivers too. I mean he hasn't. I mean he's only played one game for us, pitched one game, has didn't do, like great, but based on his numbers at Toronto, I don't know why they waived him really. But hopefully he'll be a good piece, just like Mobley, where we can keep in the pen next like 2 3 years. Um, and then the next trade though we did get was another one that AI offered was for Magical. Um, and the main piece was Dylan O'Ray, who though the overall the potential is really support, he does have the high avoid K and decent speed and base running and stealing. So we can always just use him to be as a pinch runner, really. It's basically a 26 man. He plays second and center too, which he probably, like, I'm probably going to train him in the outfield to get that center field up maybe, because I can maybe use him as a defensive sub. Um, and also high work ethic, high baseball IQ. Can't get better than that, really. Um, and obviously we went over this. Josh now we put on, we brought back from the IL too. Um, Zach No also, as I should also talk about, did go on the IL. Our best player this year, like by far in between. If we just look here, our best player at the time when he won the IL was Kyron Paris. And if Kyron Paris is your best player hitter in terms of WAR, there's something wrong. Joe Dell also came off the IL too. Yohan Moncada has turned it a tiny bit around. Hope I can get that WAR up a bit more so I can trade him. Nelson Rod has been off and on too recently. He was actually even. His OPS also did hit 90 earlier, so like I just think he's young. He's 20 years old. We'll just let him play for a bit because we've no one else better to really throw up there. Christian Moore also struggled a bit to start. He's been improving recently as well. So we're not too worried about those two for now. Mike Trout, on the other hand, I mean, it's not like current day, like actual real life Mike Trout right now, who was an all-star like this year. Mike Trout's been unbearable to say the least. Not worthy of that $37 million contract really, but I mean, the power might play eventually. As I said, Avoid K is just very iffy here and there. Like he already has 68 keys in 51 games. Like that's inexcusable, which is the main cause for his concern, really. I mean, when he's striking out in 183 at bats, a third of the time, like it's always going to lead to a low strikeout rate. Knicks have lost. He's been there too. Like the power has been there presently, but um, I hope I can just get 1 or 2 good years out of him, just to help the team. Like at least just was it help the team a bit, and especially in that third year when we're trying to actually make the playoffs too. The pitching though, We did also option read Detmers for a game, just to move people, like, just to try stuff out. But injury did come up, and for I don't even want to pronounce his name, just Josh, um, Kochanowicz, he got hurt, so we just brought him back up. That will probably do it though for this episode. But to start though, we will probably just start for our draft tag though. Um, depending on who's available, we'll go from there. But as we discussed, we want to take Tegan Kuhn's late as our main, like, probably steal of the draft, and then probably our dream pick will be a Drew Burress, uh Gomez, Emerson, or Lombard if they're both available, or if Chalowski falls, but that high overall probably mean it'll not fall at all. And then we'll go from there. That about do it for this episode. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.